We interrupt our standard scheduled Jelly Jerry block of TwoSun knives to go ahead and talk about this guy, the TS212, that happens right before any of the Jelly Jerry block, even though this is quite a new knife. And it just, sometimes those numbers kind of get there. In case somebody was wondering out there, yes, I did have a kind of a first impressions video on this, and currently it's privated. Because I was apparently, unbeknownst to me, thanks to TwoSun's listings, was doxing kind of a third party as far as this goes. And the creator of the knife kind of reached out to me and went, "Hey, could you just, mute the audio on that?" And I said, "Sure, I'll definitely do that. But I don't know how to do that quite yet. So let me just private the video so that no one else can see it until I take care of it," and then promptly just forgot about it. So that being said, it should be back up in case anybody really wants to kind of look back on that in the future. But anyway, yes, this is the TS212. Titanium frame lock. Pretty interesting design. Very short clip. And unfortunately, at this particular time, I do have a bit of a difficulty getting it in and out of my pocket. That being said, this is mostly winter time, and I've been wearing sweatpants more and more lately, which is generally where a little bit more of that difficulty gets in there. If I'm wearing my normal Carhartt pants or whatnot, I generally don't have any problems. Any of those kind of more durable fabrics. Most of mine are duck canvas, but, denim, any of that sort of crap should be a lot easier. But, if you do have some loose pockets, this one might be a little bit of a challenge for you. Let's go ahead and take a look at the blade. Kerchunk. And we see that this is very much a straight back design. No drop point, no clip point, just straight back. And some people have a little bit of trouble with these guys, I guess. For people who really, really love access to the tip of a knife for doing a lot of, standard utility cuts, cutting down on something and whatnot, that makes it a little bit more difficult just because, on a typical drop point or whatever, it would be basically kind of parallel with the pivot. More or less, obviously things change from time to time on the design, but that's kind of the purpose a lot of times on that drop point, is to make that tip a little bit more accessible down onto something. That being said, I really don't mind a straight back knife as long as I'm cutting something or piercing it in the air and cutting down. I can do that on cardboard. I can certainly do that on, plastic wraps and stuff like that. So knives like these, when I was an inventory manager many, many years ago for the Bombay Company, which was a furniture company, and other, assorted baubles and artwork and whatnot, a knife kind of like this works really, really well for cutting open pallets and then getting into boxes and all that sort of stuff. Generally no problem whatsoever. But, like I said, it does lack a little bit of that utility down onto a surface kind of thing there. But because they're straight back there, some people can use these as well for a skinning blade or something like that if they're doing hunting. I think this one's probably on the smaller end of the spectrum for trying to do that. That's probably just my expectations. I don't know. Maybe if you're field dressing squirrels and rabbits or other kind of small critters, then maybe this thing would do a decent job for you. Okay, so the creator of this knife is Tiguass, or Tiguass. Goes by that on Instagram, or Tiguass Onishikin. Both of those are, sort of thing. Something that I do like to see is, the actual model number of the knife printed on there, as well as the blade type, which in this particular instance is D2. And I'm seeing more and more new TwoSuns come out that are using D2 and or switching to D2 from 14C28N, like the TS301. And I personally have no problems with that whatsoever. D2 doesn't scratch nearly as easily, so it is, a little bit better from an aesthetics standpoint. Makes it a little bit easier for their manufacturing to not have all those returns or anything like that from the people who are looking for absolutely immaculate blade steel in 14C28N. And at least in my experience, their D2 has, it's a bit more edge retention than 14C28N, but as near as makes no difference. I mean, either one ends up working out about the same for me, as far as my rope kitting has let me know in the past. This has kind of a triple groove for the lock bar relief on it, which I do like that kind of aesthetic. It does add something there to it that, it's a little bit different. So in this particular instance, I don't mind that the relief is on the outside rather than carved on the inside there, because it adds to the overall aesthetic. We have a very, very large lanyard loop or bail kind of thing going on here on the back as well, which is pretty interesting. It can certainly work quite well for, if you wanted to carry this thing in a pouch or something like that instead. I guess more of a hunting kind of thing, I guess. I don't know necessarily. But, hey, it's there for you. It is a little interesting that it's basically built into the back spacer there, but not really into the handles itself. That's kind of why I end up referring to it as a bail instead of, just a lanyard hole or loop or something like that. Either way, it doesn't really look unattractive to me, and luckily, it's not pointy or anything like that when I'm gripping onto it. What I will say with pointiness, and that's probably not quite the right word for it, but the milling lines that you see here are actually quite a bit more aggressive than TwoSun usually does. And you can hear, if I drag my fingernail across it, that, it does have quite a bit of texture on there. Quite a bit of grip. So that's pretty neat, actually. It works out quite functionally for this piece here. And as you can see, my large hand can easily fit onto the whole thing. I would probably hope so, as this is just a little less than a 3.5 inch blade on it. 3.45 inch is what I got measured on there. And we do have these fullers here, which don't go all the way through the blade, but they do have enough to kind of grip on there. So, if you actually do it right, hey, you can reverse Spidey flick that sort of thing. I can't get my thumb in there to save my life. Maybe somebody with, smaller digits might be able to, but there you go. We got the pocket clip, or not the pocket clip, the flipper tab here that has some jimping on there. Not super aggressive, but certainly works. And we got that hole on there just to lighten it up a little bit. And, it's reasonably thin behind the edge here. I have sharpened this guy up to 17 degrees behind the edge. And it's not super thick. It's right around where TwoSun's standard is now in their 2 and 300 series. So, better blade geometry than their super old ones, but, not exactly the absolute most sliciest thing you're ever going to see. We got a blade stock thickness. It actually looks super, super thick here, but it's 3.8 millimeters, not 4, which is what I kind of view that as for whatever particular reason. And 3.8, it's right around average for TwoSun sort of builds and all that sort of stuff. On the inside here, we don't have much of a lock bar cutout or anything like that, but as most of these newer ones are doing, if that's not there, they do have these scallops. That's super easy to be able to disengage. I don't really have any problems. Maybe you would if you were using gloves. That's kind of something that I would probably mention for any of these that have a flush or not kind of scalloped out lock bar access there. As far as the blade on the top, maybe just a little tiny bit close up there. You're still going to have to try to hurt yourself with it, but it is kind of technically possible, I suppose. But the blade tip is reasonably protected and everything like that. All right, so how about if I go ahead and do some comparisons here? So here we go with the PM2. Pretty similar as far as overall sizes and all of that stuff is concerned. There's my Elephant Man 940. Obviously, well, the handle's about the same length, but definitely much less as far as blade. Even though this is definitely shorter than than they are from the factory, it's still, you know, not way too far off there. Oh, let's see, why not? I'll pull out the K-bar Dozier there, the folding hunter, which, you know, you could also use that as a hunting knife. And yeah, quite a bit smaller there. Oh, let's see. Here's another one. Here's the Rat number 1. Which is kind of in the same ballpark, but a little bit larger. And why not? For my own well-being and happiness, there's the Spyderco Manix 2 XL. This is the one that has the terrible heat treat in M4 on my particular model, but hey, it's the one that was closer to me when I was grabbing some knives out for a comparison. Okay, so this thing is actually a bit lighter than you might expect. It's 3.7 ounces, or about 105 grams. And for a 3.45-inch blade, that's just a little bit over that ounce an inch kind of thing there. And it is also exactly half an inch wide, which is pretty much equivalent to that Spyderco PM2. So quite nice as far as that's concerned. I don't really have any problems with the action. It was it was dragging just a little bit. Dragging as in it felt a little sluggish, not as in it was contacting anything. But felt like it was dragging just a little bit out of the box. But yeah, taking it apart and cleaning it up, doing the tune-up on it and everything. I got the pivot basically where I want it tuned into and all that sort of stuff. And the action's quite nice on it. So, I like that. Let's see. We can go ahead and take a look on the inside of them. There's not a huge amount of interestingness in there over any of the other ones, but hey, might as well, right? Okay, so yep, there's the lock bar side there. Oh, there's a pocket clip for it and everything. The carved out bearing races, there you go. And a little tiny hardened steel insert on this guy here. But yeah, it does have that over travel stop built into it. And we have this here, which is kind of the other side. And that's something that I'm not exactly the most thrilled whenever it ends up happening. But it really shouldn't hurt anything. As you can see here, we have two kind of areas here, and that's basically where they were able to deal with I guess adhesive overflow and everything like that, because the carbon fiber insert on here is actually adhesed in there. And you can see it's actually fairly thick because we don't have a huge amount under these scallops before you get down into that, and that just certainly does help with the weight a little bit there. It's not my absolute favorite. In case, you know, somebody actually wanted to do some titanium anodization on there, they would probably have to, you know, heat the piece up enough to weaken the adhesive to be able to remove that, and then reapply some adhesive when putting it all back together. So it's just a little bit of an extra pain in the butt. But under normal circumstances, you know, it's really not going to be trouble either way for you know, standard use. It's not going to end up breaking down on you or anything like that. We got their standard ball bearings there. And we do not have a reverse detent ramp on this particular model here. Seems like more and more designers are opting to not utilize that on their TwoSun models. It's kind of interesting. We also have an internal blade stop pin there, if you couldn't see that. And that does leave a little bit of a hole there, which isn't my exact favorite kind of versions of a frame lock sort of thing like that. But yeah, it is what it is, and you're going to deal with it basically when you're using bearings, whether you like it or not. So yes, let's go ahead and pop this guy back together. Welcome to the top of my wrist, as usual. All right, let's fold this guy up a little bit. And I shouldn't need to mention it there, but you can see here that we do have an asymmetrical shape for the pocket clip there that is countersunk into the titanium. So it's pretty rough and tumble as far as that goes. I still really do like to see more than one lash point for pocket clips in general. You know, just for my own safety, and or if that one screw starts to get a little loose, then you know, you might not lose the whole thing. Probably something I got used to with both my Spydercos and Benchmades, where one of these screws will start to get loose, and possibly you lose it altogether. And at least with those, you have another two holding it in. So there is that in particular there. So yeah, we're back together all the way. I think pivot's probably just a little tighter than it really needs to be. Yeah, there we go. You can see we have a fairly high tolerance kind of going on here, which is definitely interesting to see. They have done this on obviously some more of them in the past, and it is really interesting to see that sort of thing. However, that does kind of mean you really do have to be up a little bit on your pivot tightness, because if this does get a little bit loose, then it will lax, and it's usually the side opposite the lock bar there, which means that it could end up rubbing on the inside of that titanium right there. In these particular cases, I'll usually throw in some Loctite on the pivot. You could also use a little rubber gasket ring or something like that, something like you get with the Work Sharp precision edge sort of things as a blocker there, to put on the pivot screw to kind of give it a little bit more friction. That's basically all you want to do, is just make sure that it doesn't back out on you when you're not expecting it over time. And you won't have any problems. We don't have any blade wraps or anything crazy going on there. Yeah, super nice. I like it quite a bit. It does feel like a fairly small knife to me, which is interesting. I mean, like I've said a few times, we got just under a 3.5-inch blade here, and it does fit in my hands quite nicely. But still, when I look at it, especially when it's all nice and closed up, to me it looks like a fairly small knife. Probably, I don't know, just a little less assuming than you know, some of the larger kind of knives that I end up carrying on me and playing around with quite a bit. So I think it looks a little less intimidating than a lot of those other ones. This kind of dog bone thing here, yeah, quite a few different people have used those designs. You know, you can certainly think of something like the CRKT crossbones as kind of having that same sort of thing, but they're by no means the only one who uses that sort of thing, and it's kind of classy. I do end up liking that look. So overall, I'm quite happy with this thing. A little bit more so than I initially thought when I made the purchase on it. So I'm happy to hear that. Even though I just said it, so I probably thought it earlier, but hey, I don't know. I'm here with y'all. So, alright, yeah, there's the TS212 and D2 frame lock flipper from Tiguass. And yes, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching. And have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Oh. Subscribe.